helping them enjoy this birthday and the next and the next. Happy birthday, Cameron.
WMC Health. Advancing care here. And now with your latest up-to-date forecast, here's Steve Pellettieri's Eye on Weather on 1460 WVOX.
Forecast for Westchester County and the vicinity for today. We'll see mostly cloudy skies. Chance of showers through the afternoon. Highs will climb upper 50s to near 60. Slight risk of a shower this evening. Otherwise patchy fog through the overnight, then gradual clearing towards daybreak. Lows falling back close to 45. Mostly sunny skies will continue on Thursday. Thursday's highs will climb into the low to middle 50s. Sunshine with cooler conditions on Friday. Friday's highs will climb near 45. Mostly cloudy weather on Saturday. Highs into the middle 40s. Chance of rain later day Sunday. Sunday's highs lower 40. I'm Steve Pellettieri, Junior reporting 1460 WVOX, a Whitney Global Media Station.
Thank you for joining us on 1460 WVOX, America's great community radio station where many different voices are heard in the land. Opinions expressed on our community and open line programs are not necessarily the station it's meant to guess.
Ranger Callahan.
Ranger Callahan. Okay, got it. People here on Vox Populi. They haven't called yet. So.
He's going to call in, I think, in about a minute.
You and yours. Radio achieves its highest calling when it resembles a forum, a soapbox for the expression of many different viewpoints. AM 1460, WVOX. 1460 WVOX. Stay tuned now for What Happened Here with Rich Thomas. Rich Thomas is the former mayor of Mount Vernon. And now, What Happened Here with Rich Thomas on 1460 WVOX. He's on the line. Great.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. My name is Rich Thomas. You're listening to What Happened Here, and we're here on a Whitney Global Media Station every Wednesday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. asking the question, what happened here? And today's question, today's topic is World War II. Today is December 7th, an infamous day in American history where America was bombed by the Japanese, prompting America to enter World War II. We were bombed at Pearl Harbor, lost significant casualties, American lives. And up until that point, America was trying to stay out of foreign conflicts. But after that heinous act, that infamous day, as President Roosevelt proclaimed, America entered World War II and ended the war that was supposed to end all wars. And our guest today is Ranger Callahan. He is from the historic St. Paul's Church in Mount Vernon. I had the pleasure of sitting down with him earlier this morning to talk about an amazing exhibit that you all must go and see before it goes away this January. Get there before the end of December. There's a very special date and event that St. Paul's Church will be hosting on Saturday, December 17th. It's Wreaths Across America, where they will be placing wreaths on military and those affiliated with the military's graves to honor and respect them. But also, it's going to be a great day at St. Paul's Church for some history for you to get the scoop pre-Facebook of stories, war stories from people that lived in Mount Vernon in the North Bronx, families that migrated to even New Rochelle. Stories and accounts from the front lines of war during World War II are on display at St. Paul's Church in Mount Vernon. We hope you go down and see the history and put your hands on it and get a grasp of the important role that was played by, nonetheless, a teacher that was teaching at A.B. Davis High School, interacting with young men and women that went to war to serve their country. And you will be amazed by some of the lengths people went to go and fight for freedom and liberty. And with us, we have Ranger Callahan on the line from St. Paul's Church. Thank you for joining us, Ranger Callahan. I'm so honored that you're able to spend some time sharing the history and making everybody aware of how important it is to never forget the role that our local community played in advancing victory in World War II.
Well, thank you, Mayor Thomas. Thank you, and thanks for having me on the show. It's a great way to get the word about our exhibit and on the service of the people mentioned in our exhibit for the Second World War.
So can you tell everybody a little bit about the exhibit and where did some of the material come from for the exhibit?
Well, some of the material came from donation from family members. Lieutenant Weigel's family gave his jacket, pilot plates. Gertrude's daughter gave photographs. Some came from the New York Military Museum up in Albany, Saratoga area, and some came right from Mount Vernon. One of the centerpieces of the exhibit is a scrapbook owned by Mrs. Bernice Bailey. She's an English teacher at A.B. Davis High School. Approximately about 100 letters in there from service members to her during the war. So it came from local sources and also at the local area here.
So you mentioned Gertrude, and I just want to begin with Gertrude because, what role did Miss Gertrude Peterson play in World War II? Because I want to come back to Miss Bailey. We know she's the centerpiece, but let's tee this up so everybody knows that Mount Vernon, um, St. Paul's Church, it's a historic place. We know this. And we'll get into the story of St. Paul's in a moment, but I just want to mention that Franklin Roosevelt, his wife, was very committed to raising funds for St. Paul's Church. Can you just tell everybody a little bit about that and that relationship with Eleanor Roosevelt?
Well, his wife, Ellen, but also apparently his mother, Sarah Delano Roosevelt.
Wow.
And what happened was around 19, late 1920s and 1930s, Reverend Weigel was the minister here. He was concerned because the congregation was shrinking a bit. And he wanted to find a way to hold the people here. And he figured, well, make it historically significant. That'll spark interest in the area. And part of the plan was to convert the church back to the original appearance of 1788, 1790. The appearance had changed early in the interior over the years to Victorian. He needed money to do that. This is the Depression era. And Sarah Delano Roosevelt supported him in raising money to renovate the church.
So the mom of one of the most influential, powerful presidents of the United States said, I'm going to invest in making sure St. Paul's Church in Mount Vernon rises again.
Yes, that's what it was. He gave him advice on raising funds. He was allowed to use her name raising the funds. And FDR, in fact, was here twice for service.
Wow.
He came down here, so.
And the women's suffrage movement, by the way, has some ties to this because during that time, there were lots of enlightened conversations and advancements in conversations about, making sure women's rights were protected and advanced. And that's where I bring up Gertrude Pearson, because here you have a member of St. Paul's Church, right?
Yep.
Inspired by the acts of the Roosevelt family, the progressive minister at the time, reverend at the time, and she did something that was very important for World War II. Can you tell everybody a little bit about that?
So Gertrude Pearson was
Hmm.
Army, and she was assigned to the United States Army Air Force as a cryptologist, coding and decoding. She was initial training here in the States, was then were able. Then her unit landed at Normandy 2 months after D-Day. Now, her unit, the U.S. Army Air Force, was the only all-female cryptologist unit in the United States Army Air Force. So, kind of noteworthy right there. Now, the Women's Army Corps she was a part of, they were not carrying weapons, so they landed in Normandy. And they splashed ashore. And at that time, the Normandy was still a supply depot for troops moving in towards Germany. It was still under attack. So Gertrude and her comrades get off the landing craft, they squatted with their duffel bags and that. And also told them, get up on the ridge line there, get in a foxhole with still under attack. So now They were based in a basement in an abandoned house. It was the worst winter in living memory in Europe at that point in time.
Wow. And there's going to be a horrible winter, especially for energy prices in Europe now. And
Exactly.
I can only imagine, at a time where there was no infrastructure and, no gas lines, no access to, modern conveniences, how she stayed warm and the lengths she went to survive and thrive. And did you mention that was it Gertrude that came back to St. Paul's frequently for events and activities up until recent years? Is that true?
Yes, it was. She was discharged from the army in 1946.
Wow. Well, we're
Uh,
gonna we're gonna come back from this quick commercial break. We're gonna pick up on Gertrude. Don't change that dial. We'll talk Mount Vernon history, World War II, and there's some great Jewish war stories in here that you have to hear coming out of Germany. Don't change that dial. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. It's a great historical conversation. I invite you to go check it out at St. Paul's Church. It's a lot going on there, and you know, very lucky to have Ranger Callahan on. Thank you for joining. And on Saturday, December 17th, we're going to be able to go and see some of the history at St. Paul's Church. And hope you guys come and join us down there. I know I'm going to have some friends up from New York City that day where we're going to have a little tour of some coffee spots in Mount Vernon, but also they get to get a flavor and sampling of Mount Vernon's history and a lot of the promise and potential that the city has. So I look forward to receiving you, PA, and your friends, but also all of you down at St. Paul's Church on Saturday, December 17th. It's going to be a fun day. But yes, so our guest today is Ranger Callahan from the museum at St. Paul's. He is sharing with us some war stories. And if you had any, idea or thoughts about World War II, you're going to get some more context as to where some of the most um, important moments in cinema, The Great Escape, story of an escape from a World War II German prison camp, took place. People from Mount Vernon were there, and they were, eventually got out. But I'm telling you, it's an amazing, proud moment to learn that you have people from your own community connected to some of the most historic moments in American history. And St. Paul's Church, it's in and of itself is a historic institution. It played a role in free speech, and we'll talk about that as well when we come back from break. That way, everybody gets the context on that.
Former mayor of Mount Vernon on 1460 UVOX.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. My name is Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon, and you're listening to What Happened Here. And we're here every Wednesday on 1460 on your AM dial or worldwide on WVOX.com from 12 to 1 p.m. asking the question, what happened here? And this week's question is, what happened with World War II? Mount Vernon's role in World War II? What happened to the stories and accounts from the front lines? And with us, we have a very special guest, Ranger Callahan from St. Paul's Church, the museum at the historic St. Paul's Church, which is, inextricably intertwined to America's history. It is a place rich in history that is rooted in even our Bill of Rights, the First Amendment to the Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of press. It was born at St. Paul's Church with the famous John Peter Zenger trials. And we have so much appreciation for that because it set the tone that America is going to be a place of free thinking, free press, and free religion. It's an amazing story from St. Paul's Church. It's Westchester's only national park in Mount Vernon, and we're proud to have on the line Ranger Callahan, who helped assemble a World War II exhibit with David Osborne, the site supervisor and historian, that they did biographies on people from Mount Vernon that went to that went to war, World War II. And before we went to break, he was telling the story of Gertrude Pearson, who was a cryptologist, and he was about to share that she came to the church over the years and was going to share some of her favorite events at the church.
Yeah, and well, she was discharged in 1945. Was married in 1948, right at St. Paul's Church,
Wow.
and she was when she was very involved in veterans activities in Westchester County. She helped found the VFW post in northern Westchester. But otherwise, she's kind of quiet. She wasn't really typical of the greatest generation, the World War II generation. She felt it was a job that she had to do. It was just something that had to be done. And she was very involved in veterans activity. And David and I were members of the early 2000s coming to St. Paul's Church for concert. And she remembers it as a very nice, quiet lady. Never once mentioned her military service, not once.
Wow.
But is giving interviews to the Smithsonian, to oral interviews, talking to people writing books, very involved in things like that, getting the word out. And if I could, I'd like to read a quote from a book called Our Mother's War. American women are often by the order of Emily Yellen. And this the winter of 1944 and 1945 in Vittel was an important time in our military careers. Vittel is the town where she was stationed at. This was the Battle of the Bulge. We had been accepted to the 1st Tactical Air Force to get into wishes, but several felt women along the rear areas were unsuitable for the work assigned to us. They felt that women were incapable of enduring hardships and rough conditions of combat. However, our success and astounding work many attitudes. We remained reliable and stable while on duty in the stressful conditions. It was the roughest winter any of us had experienced, and we were eager to get on. So it was rough, but as he said, they were eager to get on with the job.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That is amazing. And you were telling the story about how earlier when we had a chance to sit down and I got a chance to put my hands on some of this history. You were telling the story about how you have a scrapbook
Right.
of letters and correspondence to a Mount Vernon teacher of all people. Our heroes wrote back to their teacher in addition to their parents, but pre-Facebook, pre, social media nonsense. This was the real deal, one-to-one real correspondence, stuff you see all and hear and read about all the time, but you have it. Can you tell us a little bit about this trove of information you got, this treasure that documents Mount Vernon's history and its relationship to World War II?
Well, first of all, treasure is the appropriate word. It definitely is, as you're still looking at the book. It's a scrapbook with approximately 100 letters in it, written to Miss Bernice Bailey, an English teacher at Amy Davis High School. This is our former students writing to her. Mrs. Bailey was born in Iowa in 1889. She became a teacher and eventually came to the New York area. She was married at that time. Early 1930s, she was divorced, and which is kind of unusual for that time period. But she was in Mount Vernon at that point in time. People just their attitude here was probably, well, she's divorced, whatever. Back in her hometown, it probably would have been frowned upon. Here was a little bit different, a little more progressive thinking, liberal thinking. She was a very wonderful teacher. And when the war broke out and the U.S. was brought into it, she habitually wrote to her students in the United States and overseas. And they, of course, wrote back to her. In the letters to her, we have the scrapbook here at the site. It's on loan to the Mount Vernon City Library. And she wrote to her students and former students, again, on a constant basis. It was probably her secondary job. And also, I mentioned she was divorced. She had no children. A way of looking at it might be that she treated her students as her children, and they trusted her. And as we spoke about before, Mr. Mayor, I've read those letters. They're amazing. You can't help but get emotional even reading. Some of the men that wrote to her actually killed in action afterwards. But what I picked up from the letters was things they said to her. It appeared to me that they were saying things to her they would not say to their parents, wife, girlfriends, or any other relatives. It's like Mrs. Bailey was a trusted, neutral party to talk to.
And can you start with that letter from the young man that was thinking about romance while he was out there, you know,
Yes.
taking care of business to come back home after defending freedom on the front lines?
Okay, that would be the sailor, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you want to become a priest, of course. That was Seaman First Class William H. Desmond of the United States Army. He was born in 1926, right there in Mount Vernon, New York. And he went in the Navy in 1944 at age 18.
And we're gonna hold it right there because I'm telling you, everybody, you got to hear this story about this seaman. He was has a lot to share. Don't change that dial. Listen to what happened here. Thank you guys. Just hang on. We're gonna go to a quick break. We'll be right back. And while we're on this commercial break, I just briefly want to extend condolences to Dominique, um, Jimmy Scamata's daughter. We lost a great Mount Vernon man yesterday, Jimmy Scamata. He was an enemy of potholes. He was the guy you always saw out there with the cigar, fixing, the streets, literally with his bare hands and with the tools he could get to do the job to make our roads as smooth as possible. Jimmy was a hard worker, dedicated person, and he gave it straight all the time. Jimmy, um, it didn't matter who you were. He would tell you. He didn't matter. It didn't matter where you were either. If you were in the middle of a meeting, you were in the street, he would stop you, and you would have to stop and talk to Jimmy because he made it clear like it's important, and he was always a man of his word and very strong on his positions. So I'm happy to have met him and befriended him, developed a relationship with him, and I'm very sorry that he's gone way too soon. His daughter, he loved her beyond life, and I'm just so heartbroken that she lost him so soon. And with all that's going on in the world during the holidays, I just everybody pray for Dominique and know that there will be an effort arranged by DPW to try and support her throughout this holiday hard time. So prayers up and much love and comfort to Dominique and the Scamata family and all the men and women that work with him and all the residents that know him for being a Mount Vernon fixture of fixing our streets. So Jimmy, God bless, rest in peace. And I'm gonna dive into the circumstances surrounding your untimely, unfortunate, passing, but it's unacceptable for the ambulance to take 31 minutes to get to the scene. And it's also unacceptable that the administration at City Hall eliminated the rescue truck from the fire department. The rescue truck plays a role very similar to an ambulance. And this is why Mount Vernon needs its own ambulance corps. And we can have outsiders supplement our ambulance corps, but not be the only lifeline. And it raises serious questions about this administration's commitment to safety. They truly do not know what to do because when you get in a situation like unfortunately Jimmy was in, the safety net is not there to catch you. And that's because this administration does not prioritize safety, period. So we'll talk about this on a different setting at a different time, but I wanted you to know that this administration has put photo ops and personal politics ahead of the people of the city, and Jimmy is another victim of it.
Yes, Westchester County in the vicinity of Fort.
So we're coming back from break,
Skies, chance of showers for the
and I'm going to do a special discussion about Jimmy and what I believe needs to happen so that we never have this happen again.
Skies continue on Thursday. Thursday's highs will climb into the low to middle 50s. Sunshine with cooler conditions on Friday. Friday's highs will climb near 45. Mostly cloudy weather on Saturday, highs into the middle 40s. Chance of rain later day Sunday. Sunday's highs lower 40s. I'm Steve Pellettieri, Jr., reporting 1460 WVOX, a Whitney Global Media Station.
This is WVOX at 1460 for Premium Point, Scarsdale, and Purchase. 1460 WVOX. And now back to What Happened Here with Rich Thomas, the former mayor of Mount Vernon, on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. My name is Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon. You're listening to What Happened Here on a Whitney Global Media Station, and we're here every Wednesday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. asking the question, what happened here? Today's topic is World War II on Wednesday, December 7th, the infamous day in American history where America was bombed. Pearl Harbor was attacked, lost so many casualties, prompting America to finally enter World War II to end the war that was supposed to be ending all wars. And if you think about the time, it's the 40s. You have Winston Churchill over in England saying, never quit. America, come on, get up. Let's wake up the sleeping giant. Let's stop Hitler. And you know, today's the day where America decided enough is enough, and we're going to support and defend freedom. And people from Mount Vernon joined that fight. And on the line we have Ranger Callahan from St. Paul's Church in Mount Vernon, and he's discussing a very special exhibit that's at St. Paul's Church Museum. It is there until January, so please everybody go down and see it. St. Paul's going to have a great event on the 17th of December. I encourage you to go to the 17th, but I encourage you to go between now and the end of December. Just go. It's a great facility, great space. You need some time to get through a lot of the information they have. But before we return to the story, we're going to talk about one of the members of the Navy that was from Mount Vernon, born in Mount Vernon Hospital in 1926. I just want to ask Ranger Callahan if you can just tell everybody briefly St. Paul's Church connection to the First Amendment. If you can just quickly share that story, I think people need to know just how historic St. Paul's Church is, and then we'll talk about the Sister of Liberty bill, in the next segment. But I just want you to if you can just give a quick summary of that for everybody.
At that time, Mount Vernon was called the town of Eastchester. On the village green, there was a debate between two individuals running for sheriff up here. One of them was a protege of the governor of New York, who was pretty corrupt. The other was an honest man. And the governor demanded would, if any means possible, to get into office in an election. We hold a debate on the village green, which is where the church stands today, of course. And back then, it wasn't a secret ballot. People raised their hands. They knew who you voted for. And the governor's man realized he was kind of trouble, or he wasn't going to win the election. And there were a number of Quakers living here who were opposed to him. And what he did was this. He and his men said that, okay, if you want to vote in this election, you have to swear on the Bible that you are loyal to the King of England and that you own a certain amount of land. Quakers are not allowed to swear on the Bible. They were disqualified. The governor's man lost the election anyway. But John Peter Zenger, a newspaper editor living in New York City, wrote about this. So it's probably the first documented election that was put into print, what happened here. And what happened was it got Zenger put on the radar of the governor of New York, who really didn't like him. In 1735, Zinger was arrested and tried for seditious libel. He was found not guilty of all charges. So, in its own way, St. Paul's Church has a bit to do with freedom of the press also.
See everybody, and that happened at St. Paul's Church in Mount Vernon. And in the next segment, we'll talk about the bell that's there and how it really is a national treasure. But back to World War II and the treasure of information we're going through at St. Paul's Church Museum, the exhibit on World War II. We have Jewish war stories, we have Scottish war stories, we have Mount Vernon, American war stories, and now we're hearing from a young man that was in the Navy. And ladies and gentlemen, I had such pleasure listening to this one. Brought tears to my eyes. Actually, one of his final accounts. But Ranger, can you just bring everybody back to
Sure.
1926?
Okay, if Seaman First Class William A. Stetson, born 1926 in Mount Vernon, New York. Entered the Navy in 1944 at the age of 18, and he served in the Pacific Theater. And he wrote this letter to the on February 5th, 1946, after the war ended. He hadn't been discharged yet, he was still in the Navy. Now, I want you to keep in mind, this is written by a 20-year-old. He writes, Dear Mrs. Bailey, today I was surprised to see the letter from you this afternoon's mail call. It was dated November 10th, 1945, and been delivered to 3 or 4 different places in California where I was stationed. So before another day has come and gone, I figured I should answer it. Christmas and New Year's have been here and departed. It looks like 1946 will be a prosperous new year for all, especially as my ship is leaving for the States. 4 Pacific invasion and the occupation of Japan, one great still great politicians bring world wars is over. But I suppose I am pretty bitter. But after you've seen so much killing, you can't expect to feel the same. I pray to the dear Lord that this will be the last. My parents are living in New Rochelle. They have entered Fordham University, New York City, to study for the priesthood. My college entrance exam was sent to me by the school last November, and I passed with good marks. You are teaching, you know. But I promise to come and see you when I come home in April. You see, Mrs. B, the Navy gave us a lot to think about for what we like to do when we leave the Navy. The idea or the inspiration came to me when my best shipmate get killed during a bombing when we landed at Okinawa. He died clutching a crucifix, not crying or whimpering. From then on, I knew what religion means to man. There I go preaching again. I know this may surprise you, Miss Bailey, but I feel sure you'll understand. That was his letter to Mrs. Bailey, and it showed how much he trusted her to confide
And
his feelings.
and it's for those that are listening and watching online. Um, this person, this Navy hero that basically said he's going to become a priest after witnessing the depths of war. He would write to her before talking about how he wanted to have women in his arms.
Yeah, clean. That's Monroe, and but like I said, the letters are amazing. The letters are amazing. Uh, that's also I that was Ben Ross who wrote that, but the women in his
Okay,
arms.
so I'm mixing up the two. Okay,
Yeah, that's a legit. Yeah. But I can read a couple of his quotes too, if you like.
please.
Okay. This is Lieutenant Adolph Rosser Jr., 30th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. The 3rd Division also had Audie Murphy as a member of that division. He and Rosser may have known one another. And he attended A.B. Davis High School. He goes into the Army and is commissioned as a second lieutenant officer. He writes Mrs. Bailey on 1 October 1943. I was in the invasion of Africa and Sicily. As you no doubt read in the papers, did quite a job on Sicily. 38 days of rough going. I was wounded hand slightly by a German hand grenade and received a perk bar. Twice been recommended to the Silver Star. Single. Haven't found a girl who will love me. Please. One can't be too sure of days or time out here. I never know whether it's Sunday or Friday. Not that it matters much. We oversee. Sorry to hear that. I was hoping one of the boys would be home with mother and dad. So right now, his mother, as he's writing this, has three sons and come back.
You hear this, everybody? This is the type of firsthand accounts of families from Mount Vernon going to war and reaching back to connect with their teacher at A.B. Davis High School. It's an amazing exhibit at St. Paul's Church. Don't change that dial. We have a few more points to get to before we let you go. Don't change that dial. Stay right here. And as predicted, Aaron Judge stays in New York. Woo! But look, I knew that was going to happen. I just hope that we could do something with um, we could do something with the bullpen, Yankees bullpen. And I understand the rest of the league, they don't want the Yankees to have a good bullpen. But let's listen to the news cycle before we get into this final break.
But nuclear war is rising.
He's told his Human Rights Council he views his nuclear arsenal as a purely defensive deterrent. The speech featured a number of criticisms of the West, saying unlike the US, his country had never deployed such weapons abroad, and Mr. Putin defended the war in Ukraine.
It's Fox's Jonathan Savage. Today, Time magazine named Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky Person of the Year. Solemn remembrance today on this 81st anniversary of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
The service at the National Pearl Harbor Memorial will feature a moment of silence at the time the attack began and a missing man formation flyover. The memorial features the USS Arizona, the resting place of over 1,100 sailors and Marines killed on the battleship.
That's Fox's Ryan Schmelz. America is listening to Fox News.
So there goes your quick Fox News report. Just wanted to give you that. So if you guys got any questions about you have any questions about World War II, you want to ask Ranger Callahan something, feel free to submit it. You can call in. I neglected to say the dial-in number because I wanted us to really listen to Ranger Callahan. But the phone number to call in if you want is 914-636-0110. I'm going to say that a little bit slower. 914-636-0110. And when we come back from break, I'm going to ask him about the Jewish war stories and the prisoner of war that was at a German prison camp, and how it was a part of the story of one of America's the most celebrated films about World War II, The Great Escape. So here we go. We're about to come back from break. And as I mentioned earlier, while we also mourn the loss of Jimmy Scamata, I extend my condolences to the Yonkers police, the city of Yonkers, the family that lost the officer that was just driving, the sergeant that was driving, going about his business on duty and just got into a terrible car crash from a young person that did not belong behind the wheel without supervision. So this is a terrible tragedy for everyone, and a serious reminder of what the privilege of driving means, and young people need to be very aware of that these vehicles are not toys, and it's not the movies out here. You gotta be cool and look at the drive slow. But hey, it's a terrible, 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 terrible loss. So my heart goes out to the Yonkers family that was affected by the loss, the Yonkers police family, the city of Yonkers. Mayor Rich Thomas extends my deepest condolences on the loss, and I hope that throughout all this pain over time, the burden of the loss gets lighter, but I know it's going to be extremely heavy right now, and it's something that is going to hurt for a very long time, if not forever, especially during this holiday season. So condolences on the loss. So we're about to come back from break. And, we're talking with Ranger Callahan from St. Paul's Church. Just want to make sure you know that we're entering our final segment. I'm going to have him talk about some Jewish war stories and the prisoner of war that was held in Germany. That's from Mount Vernon. And it's going to be a great, 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 great discussion about, the real kind of the extent communications were limited. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation that we're going to have about Jewish war stories and prisoners of war in
And now
Germany
back
during
to
World War II
what happened here with
on
Rick
Pearl Harbor
Thomas,
Day.
former mayor of Mount Vernon, on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. My name is Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon, New York. We're here every Wednesday on a Whitney Global Media station from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. asking the question, what happened here? You're listening to What Happened Here, and this week's topic is World War II. Today is the 81st anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day, the infamous day where America was attacked by the Japanese, losing over 1,100 casualties out in Hawaii. And it was the event that prompted America to enter World War II after years of Winston Churchill advocating for America to enter to stop the march of Hitler, hate, and attacks on Jewish people, and just for free society for that. And today marks that day, and at the St. Paul's Church in Mount Vernon, there is an exhibit of Mount Vernon's role in World War II in the North Bronx. They have a treasure of information, some on loan from families that were directly involved with St. Paul's Church in World War II in the area, but also Mount Vernon Public Library. It's an amazing story. And before we take the caller, I just want to ask Ranger Callahan, who's on the line. Um, he was about to share an account, from the front line, and I just want to just ask you, Ranger, to we're going to welcome this call in a moment, but there was a Jewish war story of Rosner, I believe the name was, and then there was another story of a gentleman, of a prisoner of war at a German prison camp. What was the name of that prison camp?
For the for grace.
You see that, and that was in some movie, was it not?
You know what I mean? For the game, we got that and captured. Essentially, spell number 3. Now, they're primarily British airmen in prison there, but a few Americans were put there also. Blue Spelling number 3 was the style depicted in the movie The Great Escape.
Wow. Can
He was
you
in prison there.
can you read his letter? It's a short one, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
if you can just describe the censorship, and then I want to bring the call on.
Sure. It's written on stationery, German stationery, of course. It's right from a prison camp. It's dated Friday, April 21st, 1944. Dear Mrs. Bailey, I was very pleasantly surprised when I received your Xmas card and letter the other day. Thank you ever so much. Thank you for your kind thoughts and wishes. I'm quite well and find many books and classes in which to occupy myself. Sorry the brevity of this note. Sincerely, David. And he came from parents who were Jewish immigrants to the United States. And eventually he was liberated from his prison camp, came back to the United States, moved to California, and passed away out there. But the interesting thing is, when Mrs. Bailey wrote back to him, I have the envelope, you saw it this morning, sir. The Germans rejected the letter because Mrs. Bailey put a victory stamp on the envelope And the Germans said, no way is this coming in here. They sent the letter back. Eventually did get some drums though. But the Germans said, no, victory over us? No, that's not coming in here.
Look at that, everybody. Such an amazing, account of just communicating and being part of an amazing account from World War II. Now we have a call on the line. Caller, thank you for joining. And
Vince.
hey, Vince, thank you for joining. Vince, thank you for joining.
Yes, I really like you doing the show very kindly. Well, standing for me. Just a quick thing, my mother's brothers were prisoners of war,
Wow.
shot down in Germany. My dad, as a young man, was a doctor, and my mom came from high school in Ohio and joined, I think they were called the Wax or the Waves or something, and that's how they met. But the story I just wanted to mention, and maybe your guest might be able to help me with this. I was a teacher for nearly 40 years, and I was a history person. And one of the things that's very ubiquitous about World War II movies and stuff is there is a footage that was shot on D-Day, June 6, 44, from some photographer from the beach shooting back to the water, showing a 2 or 3 Marines kind of running up the beach towards the beach, coming up. One of them getting shot and killed on the beach. I've often wondered what the courage is that makes you run into that kind of withering wall of death. I'm wondering if your guest can point me into trying to find out if he knows the image I'm talking about. I hope he does. Who that Marine or who that army enlistee or whatever was. I've often wondered for all these years I'm in my 70s, of wondering who that young man was. I don't know if there's a way to ever find out, but we owe him and many others an undying gratitude of debt. Yeah. So if your guest has any thought, I'll just listen.
Amen. Thank you, Vince. And there are some exhibits there that speak to that. So Ranger Callahan, if you can share some thoughts on that.
I'm not familiar with the photograph of the soldier on D-Day, but what made them do it is I'm retired Army myself. I did 20 years. What makes you do that basic number one is discipline, but also it's the people you're serving with. You don't want to let them down. So that's probably what that soldier was thinking. My friends are coming ashore here. I'm part of an overall team. I have to keep going. We have to win. That's probably what that soldier was thinking when he went ashore like that. And of course, discipline comes into it also, and training too. Of course.
Is there any way that I hope you're thinking of the image that I'm talking about. That camera footage showing Marines charging up the beach. Got three of them spread apart, and then one unfortunate Marine or Army serviceman getting shot and killed on the beach. I've often wondered, the many times I've seen that image, who that young man was.
What I would probably recommend, sir, is that if you plan definitely the date, Normandy, which beach it was. It was it Utah Beach? Was it Omaha Beach? Which beach was it?
I don't know.
Probably right down to the Museum of the United States Army down in Virginia. They may be able to tell you who it was.
We'll take it up.
My entire adult life, and I'll never forget the debt I owe that young man and many others like.
And I encourage you to go to the exhibit if you can make it to St. Paul's Church. There are a few photos. There's one of the American flag being hoisted up in Japan at the conclusion of the war, and there's another one that was, I believe, featured in the Daily Argus from Mount Vernon, showing some of the casualties of war, similar to what you're describing. Ranger, you want to give some context on those two pictures, and then give the address and where people can go to find St. Paul's.
The flag raising flag, great tape photograph, and the other one was the three dead soldiers down the Pacific. As we discussed, around late 1942, 43, people wanted to notice something. We're involved in a fight for our lives, basically, for modern civilization. It was desperate. And they did notice that some people back in the States, not all, were getting kind of complacent with the war. We weren't like Great Britain being bombed on a 24-hour basis. We weren't occupied. And they got very concerned about that. And they said that, okay, let's bring the reality home. They started publishing photographs of service members killed in the areas of operation to remind people this is what's going on overseas right now.
And this is why we'll never forget. And I encourage you all to go to St. Paul's Church in Mount Vernon. The museum, the exhibit is there until January. Ranger Callahan, thank you for being a part of this conversation, sharing the history on this infamous day in America's history. Vince, thank you for calling. And we're going to continue this conversation as we go forward. But thank you for joining, and we'll see you next week on What Happened Here. Thank you, everybody.